Hello there, here's a commentary on Wargame Red Dragon by somebody who didn't play Wargame Red Dragon. I don't really know what this is. I'm just going to tell you what happened when I tried to play Wargame Red Dragon and the various things that led to me ultimately not playing Wargame Red Dragon. So here's a sort of reverse commentary. Well, the first issue is that you have to have an account with something called Eugen Systems to get into the game. Turns out though that after a bit of wrangling, we're able to put a fake email in and that's enough to get in, as long as we agree to the terms of use and the privacy policy that we don't read, so I'm sure that's all above board. Here we are in the game. They've gone for a themed menu, which is always a risk, mainly because it takes up space and distracts essentially from a design point of view, but I'm not really going to talk about that. The main issue I had right away was that the mouse cursor isn't where it is on the screen, as you might be able to tell. My first thing I do when going into a game is to change the sound settings to make it suitable for recording. Generally, you need to turn down voices and sound effects to make a recording that you're intending to commentate over go better. Well, for whatever reason, the mouse is having a good time. I eventually changed the resolution around and then it started working properly again, so that's all good. Meanwhile, you might also note we have a global chat on the right. Probably best to ignore that chat, it's pretty annoying. Well, looks like somebody is advocating for not going to school. Always good advice, don't stay in school, kids. So now we need to work out what's going on in this game. Well, there is a tutorial section, and incredibly, I was very willing to do the tutorial because I had no idea what was going on. There's one big problem with this though. It's not a tutorial part of the game, it's more like a manual. Well, it's sort of like a manual, but a bit worse, I suppose. It's a manual that can only be viewed in the game, so you can't view it while playing the game, and of course has to be viewed on this small monitor inside my real life monitor, so I have less space to view it on, and I already didn't have much hope because there was a lot of information here. And I thought, well, if I'm intended to read through this and then remember it for when I'm playing, that's probably not going to happen. Well, believe it or not, I actually did go through this quite long list of topics on various categories and read most of it. The issue is that this is a game that's really for military enthusiasts, I think, because even the tutorial information was happy to use like acronyms and jargon from military technology circles. And while, because I'm a strategy game nerd, I actually have seen a lot of them before in various places, it still makes it a bit harder to know what's going on, especially when combined with virtually all units in the game having their technical name, I suppose, and even the categories of things being abbreviated and made into jargon. So this made me struggle a bit to know exactly what it was talking about, but I feel like I got the vague gist of where it was going. All the different units are divided into different classes with different uses, and they're all going to have millions of different stats as well in tooltips. I'm the sort of guy that doesn't go through tooltip stats, and maybe that's a problem actually for this game. After the reading, I needed to find something to do with my new knowledge. The thing is, I didn't really know what to do in the campaign list. There's a few campaigns, and I didn't really know what any of them were. It's because they're all fictional wars, I think, anyway. It's a Cold War gone hot sort of thing. Unfortunately, I don't really know much about the Cold War, or care very much about it because I don't know much about it, so I didn't really have any sort of feel for what I'm supposed to be doing in here, in a meta sense, in the immersion sense, I guess. I did notice though that in this tooltip it says something about tutorial missions, and I was like, oh, maybe I just missed the fact that this text was just the briefing for real missions where you use the text and get used to what it's actually talking about. Maybe that actually is the case still, I don't know, but I ended up not finding any tutorial missions, and I just did this skirmish game to try and go in and do a tutorial for myself, to click around and try to find out what's going on and just what the game even is in general. I had no prior knowledge. Well, that said, when I got to this screen, I had a flashback and I realised, wait a second, I've played this before. And it was because I think I've played the predecessor to this game, which is called something like Wargame Air-Land Battle. And it looks like this, and seeing this reminded me of it. And it also reminded me that I hadn't played it for more than like 10 minutes or something. Whatever that game was, I bounced off that game without really playing it at all as well. And the same thing's happening here, presumably for the same sort of reasons, as we'll see. Well, I wanted to work out what's going on broadly speaking, so I'm going to play this skirmish. I noticed I have a base that I can move around, so that's something. I decided to put it near the road. That seems like a strategic decision. And then I zoomed in and I was pretty impressed at the level of detail down here on the ground, and also the way that it zooms in, the way it's changing the scale of what you're looking at. Seems quite satisfying and smooth. I quite like this. And the maps are really detailed too, both up close and when you're far away you see the details in a different way and more stuff in a detailed way. Hard to explain what I'm talking about here, but I eventually worked out that the tiny number in the top left is a recruitment menu of sorts. You have points and you spend the points to buy units. And here's me again just admiring stuff. I was like, wow, the ground is so detailed. You're supposed to be doing some pretty detailed tactics, I think. And I liked the way that the small scale stuff on the map is both good looking and I presume impacts the game as well. There's going to be some serious line of sight stuff and tactics going on the ground while you see it from above. So while deploying units, I again encountered the issue that I don't know what any of the units really are. They're just listed with their technical names, their model names from the manufacturers. So you have to go down this sort of list of things and work out what they're for. Looks like I eventually worked out this was some sort of anti-air thing, and it would be good to bring it along with my group of other stuff. Again though, we have choices of different anti-air things and who knows what's good and stuff. There's a lot of game knowledge that could be acquired somewhat in real life, I suspect, that goes into making these decisions that I simply don't have. I also don't have much patience, because as you can see I actually only deployed a small portion of the army and then thought, you know what, I'm just going to start the game because I just want to see like what the game even is. What do you do in the game? Well, I guess you were supposed to drive into the highlighted areas to start with. I actually lost my first highlighted area immediately, and believe it or not, I remembered why this was from the tutorial text. You have to keep a commander in each region to control it, and you have to control the regions to make currency, and that's how you buy new units. So I sent a commander back to do that. Also noted this truck is pretty powerful, slamming down a tree as it drives through the hedgerows. So I'm guessing it does give you some leeway to not have to drive on roads and such, and allows you to take light vehicles through terrain that I guess really only a tank could get through. Maybe it's just easier that way. We get our initial territory back and now we can start recruiting things. So in particular I can recruit commanders to go and sit in these white zones. That will take over them and give us more income to get more units. So that's the idea. Pretty standard RTS fare sort of thing, just a little bit different in that only certain units can capture areas and you have to leave them there afterwards to retain it. I sent a helicopter forward to see what was happening on the enemy side of the map, and it just died instantly. So this is a game that has a very realistic time to kill. If something gets hit, it's probably dead. So you can't really do any sort of cheeky tactics, no juking in the RTS sense. If a missile comes down and hits a vehicle, the vehicle explodes and that's a problem. There's no health. There is armor, I suppose, so some things will resist attacks. You need to actually pay attention because this is a modern war simulator more than a traditional RTS. It just has this random like capture point system on top, I guess to give you something to do. So I'm here having the Invasion of Ukraine experience, waiting for units to gradually drive onto the map up this road, and just not really knowing what I'm doing at the front line, and getting into these random small fights with random enemy units walking around. Here a helicopter is giving us some trouble. I was trying to bring in a plane to fight the helicopter. What I think I did is put the plane in that thing in the bottom left. I moved it to an airport panel. So maybe if I clicked on some more stuff, the plane would have showed up. There is an enemy plane attacking me. I've got my anti-air thing. It fires off a couple of missiles and they both miss, and I guess that's the end of that because it only had 2 missiles. I'm not quite sure what to do about that. I think maybe you have to drive it back to your base where it picks up more stuff, and the yellow bar on the base's little tooltip is how much stuff the base has. We also had a truck carrying some of the yellow bar of stuff, but that truck ran out of stuff and got blown up. Again, that short time to kill means that if the enemy finds you, you just die. And one thing about this game in particular that is different to most strategy games is there's no fog of war, but the fog of war mechanic is effectively there. So when your guys can't see the enemy, they're just invisible. But what we don't have on the map is a visual representation of what exactly we can't see. So the enemy sort of just appear next to you, suddenly you've seen them. I guess I'd like to have some sort of shading on the areas your guys aren't looking at, so you know where the enemy might be. There's a distinction between areas that are reconned and you know the enemy aren't there, and areas that you actually can't see or haven't checked yet. Well, after a while, we lost a bunch of units. I've got tons of resources, so I could buy more units. But I just thought, well, this isn't going very well. I'll just quit this game and start again or something. I'll get out of here. And there's a bunch of stats here. You get like XP and level up for playing games. Not really sure what the levels do. Maybe they unlock something. Or maybe it's just for the glory online or something. Well, there's a whole bunch of stats. Unfortunately, we also have to have the global chat on the screen while we're doing this. I don't know why global chat is on so much of the game's menus, because there's not much good going on in that global chat, suffice to say, and having it on the screen is quite a distraction. It says here that the enemy in that battle lost tons of stuff, which seems to be incorrect, but oh well. I realised what I could have done is put in a bunch of AI players. I thought I could have an AI ally and essentially watch what they're doing in order to work out what to do in the game, and just to have better chances overall. And that might suffice for a tutorial mission in lieu of there being anything official. The other option would be to just try and play a campaign and see what happens, and that was what I was thinking of doing at first. But again, it came back to the campaign list and I just thought, well, I don't really know what any of these things even are. I guess I didn't care enough to get into it, so I thought I'll just look up something on my phone instead. My original goal was to find some sort of tutorial that somebody else had made to get some tips. The problem is, because I'm doing it on a second screen, the game is still running and eventually I'm forced to look up and go through the global chat. I was like, what the hell are these guys talking about? And it's all the good stuff. Various speculations on which races should be killed and such. They've essentially taken a quarter of the main menu and just slapped this unmoderated feed of some 8chan ass bullshit or something. And it's like, why is this here? It's actually making the game worse because there's less space for the other stuff and I had to read the tutorial text on this tiny thing on the other side of the screen. And this being here isn't helping at all. It's certainly not helping me play the game. It's not like they're talking about the game per se. Well, it's all good stuff, and basically I just sat here and didn't really find a good tutorial and then eventually just gave up on life because I was like, well, I don't even want to be in a game where I have to read this text going past every time I try to set up a match or go through the menus. Pretty good stuff. So that essentially is what brought my Wargame Red Dragon quest to an end. It wasn't accessible enough for me. I didn't really find an easy way to even work out what the game was on a general level from within the game. I think I needed a lot of prior research to play this, which I didn't really care to do. Interestingly, when you quit the game, it has this document with all of the terms and conditions and stuff that's popped up. That's the stuff I agreed to earlier, I suppose. And how about this? Somewhere in the list, it does say that you're not allowed to put obscene or objectionable things into the global chat or engage in trolling, quote unquote. Well, there you go. We've discovered the biggest scandal of the era. Some people are breaking the terms of service in the Wargame Red Dragon global chat. Somebody sue Eugen Systems immediately. I actually clicked on their link and I was surprised to see this ad for Steel Division 2 because incredibly I'd actually installed Steel Division 2 as my backup game. I was thinking I would either play Wargame Red Dragon or Steel Division 2 as my next commentary project. Well, I discovered it was made by the same people, and I immediately thought I'm probably going to have the same problem getting into Steel Division 2. I don't really have time to do research before I play a game, because I just play it for like 40 minutes at the end of the day. Well, I ended up going through my list of other installed games, and there was something called Dyson Sphere Project, so I opened that, and it had a much better menu, so I was immediately drawn into this. I actually thought this was some sort of space game in my quest to play every space game. It totally wasn't, and I couldn't really work out what it was from this adventure through the menu I went on. It has this thing where we're looking at a galaxy and there's some stats for something, and you can click on the systems to get some more stats for something. No idea what was going on, but I went on to actually play this game and think it was really good, even though it was nothing like what I expected and probably wasn't like the reason I actually bought it in the first place. Well, the next thing I'm going to commentate on this channel is going to be this game, because this game was a positive delight and a massive contrast to the griminess of my brief Wargame Red Dragon experience. So thanks for watching this, whatever this was. I'll see you for commentary on more stuff sometime, and maybe at some point I will actually get into a Modern Warfare accurate simulator game like I sort of want to, but so far apparently have been unable to actually do, for various reasons, maybe some of which were apparent from this commentary. See you next time.